Are you struggling to find a dental assistant? I know as a dentist and practice owner that answer for many of us is yes. I am here with my awesome friend, someone I admire, who is doing the work of the Lord G.V. Black to help us all be less stressed. So even though I know you well, would you just introduce yourself to our Dentist Job Connect audience and tell us what you do?
Yes. Well, I am so excited to be here, Paul. I feel the same way about you. You're doing the
All
Lord's
right.
work for sure.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'm Summer Casmo. I am a dentist up in the Vale Valley. I have two larger practices. It's really four practices that are just merged into two bigger locations. I started a dental assisting school 10 years ago, and I've now created that program to where it can be duplicated in states across the country for doctors looking to start their own dental assisting schools. And then I worked with Mark to start a front office online training academy as well to help doctors find and recruit people with little or no dental experience in the front office and put them through some rigorous onboarding. So, as you can see, Paul, my history shows I've had a lot of experience in not being able to find talent in my area.
You create
So,
your own.
I figure out how to create my own for sure. So
I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, yesterday was the start to the football season, and I've described running a dental practice like you need that football team. And, I don't want to get into a deep dive on the Eagles, my favorite team, but if 2 years ago they won the NFC championship because the 49ers didn't have a quarterback they could put in if they were injured. And dentistry is a lot like that. And, sometimes people say, oh, one of your assistants who assists the surgical prosthodontist called out. Why don't you just get someone else to do it that day? And I go, you have no idea how specialized each of these roles are. And I just
yeah,
compliment you for
yeah.
doing that. But before we dive into this, I always like kind of to showcase people's story, asking about their life. So, dentistry can get feedback that it's a tough career as it is, but there's also some great parts. So if somebody was watching or listening and said, what is Dr. Summers' favorite part of being a practice owner? What would you say?
Yeah, actually, I think there's way more great parts than there are about the struggles. It's just easy to forget
Yes.
sometimes. But I think, I know I love watching associate doctors excel in things. I had one who came over with a sticky note that said, I did 100,000 this month, and this is my
That's
first
awesome.
time ever.
That's
That
great.
honestly made me so excited. I love watching cohesive teams kind of come together and end up hitting a goal that was super far-fetched. Like I still, all these years later, I really love getting to see teams work together to get, to some goal. That's all for sure my favorite parts.
I love that. And before I ask the next question, you said something that I want to dig deeper into. You know, Dentists never learn about money during dental school. Dental school does a great job charging a lot of money, right? They have no problem charging $500,000, but then they say these crazy things like just treat people well and you'll be fine, which is kind of the worst advice for running a business ever, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
your associate proudly came to you and said, hey, Dr. Summer, I'm so proud I produced $100,000. For the dentist saying, we shouldn't worry about money, or why are we so concerned about money? To me, that represents helping so many patients. To me, that represents your associate being able to whatever, pay off their debt, do things. Just talk to the practice owner or dentist who might have this history of being like, oh, money is such a taboo subject to talk about.
Yeah, I love this topic because I talk to so many doctors who've had that mindset. And, obviously I know you through DSI, and as a coach with DSI, I've seen the power of people understanding their numbers, that numbers just represent impact in people. And when they understand that it has impact in people, whether it be your patients or your team, when they actually understand that, a light bulb can usually go off where it's when I help more people, when I treat people well, yes, but I'm also paid for what I do. I can help my team more. I can
Yeah,
help them own their own homes. I can have the patients be well taken care of. And as the doctors, that's incredible for the doctors to be able to pay down, yeah, their own student debt, to be able to feel like they can make a nest egg, retirement, things like
I
that.
love
But,
that.
I actually find it the most helpful when people know their numbers and they really understand the power of making certain that they're paid for what they do. When they're really understanding that, actually, like I said, things will completely change for the
I
better
love
of
it. Yeah.
everyone.
I mean, money, it makes things happen. It could make your
Yeah.
vacation happen. It could make charitable care happen. It could make new technology happen. As you say, it could make having your team be able to start a retirement account happen. So I just love that we should talk
Yeah.
about that
Yeah.
as, an important part, patient-centered production. Now, let's talk about some of the reality of dentisting. So sometimes, Summer, I walk around Philadelphia with my 6-year-old on my shoulders, and some older couple goes, "Hey, young man, that is one of the best times of your life. Don't let it go by too fast." And I say, "Oh, thank you. How old are your kids?" And they say 40. I say, "Would you wish they were 6 again?" And they say, "God, no." Okay. So I say, "Oh my gosh, what a weird way to describe the best times of your life." And I've described owning a dental practice. It's kind of like having a 4-year-old that never grows up. It's awesome. It's annoying. It's exhausting. So just to give context, because you have associates and you're a practice owner. There's 2 roads in life. Someone's just like, "Hey, what's frustrating about being a dental practice owner? What are some of the things you wish someone told you as a D3 that, hey, you're going to have to deal with it?" What would you say, Summer?
Yeah, what's funny is I do think about this a lot. And when I get the chance to talk to students, I'll say something along the lines of the things I wish I would have known were learn the leadership and HR component earlier. We spend so much time focused on clinical skill set that a lot of
Right.
times we miss the HR component of how to truly learn to lead people. And there's so many resources out there now that you and I probably didn't have when we were in dental school, but there's great resources for students to start learning how to lead and really take care of the HR, headaches that can happen in practices to learn that sooner. And the second part is it's funny because you can be an incredible clinical dentist, but what's frustrating is when the patients don't know it. And
Yeah.
so, sometimes I tell people, I wish that dental school would teach us the art of an incredible 7-minute exam,
Yes, I love
and
that.
spend more time on that sometimes than how to perfect that class too. That's important, but I joke like if a patient doesn't know what you're talking about and why it's important and you can't sell it in the first place, no, it's all for naught. So
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, one of my favorite books to sell is Human by Daniel Pink. I think everyone should read talks about this. And also, I joke with our good friend Mark about, biceps and EBITDA. And back in the 1980s, people like us, all we did would go to the gym and do bench press and bicep curls and go home. And you had all these people with giant biceps and chest and skinny legs. And so I talk about your dental core, mind skills, hand skills, heart skills, and word skills. And some of the frustrating parts to me, and I'll share, because I like these podcast recordings, is as somebody who's been a restaurant server, Summer, someone who now sells things to dentists, dentist job connecting dental nachos, and someone who still has 2 dental practices, the patient dentist relationship can be very adversarial. It can be very difficult. I was literally riding home last week, calling someone who left us a 1-star review about his wife's insurance from 3 years ago not covering something. And it was just so adversarial. And I just tell dentists and practice owners, you got to be ready for that because dentists aren't the easiest customers, pun intended, but they want Job Connect. They want to go to a course, DSI. Maybe it's not right for everybody now, but they want that, right? And I just think you have to be ready for this adversarial relationship and be able to manage it. And just like you said, if you can't sell your help, as I call it, nobody moves forward with anything. Well, thanks for sharing
absolutely.
that context, Summer. Now, what inspired you to start DA Schools Deliver? Tell us a little bit about it. And what was your inspiration, your aha moment for that?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So, what was hard for me is, I live up in the Vail Valley. So we have about 50,000 people, but it's spread out amongst a pretty big valley up in the mountains of Colorado. And what I found was, the nearest DA schools were Denver and Grand Junction, about 2 hours away. And there was students who wanted to come to my area to be able to shadow as the schools, told them to go do. And those students would come into my offices. And what's funny is I would be working with them and I would realize, I would say, hand me the Explorer. They had no idea what that was. I would
Yeah.
say, help me with something really simple. No idea. And I remember I was sitting at lunch one time with one and I said, hey, tell me more about your story. How long is this program? Where's it at? And it was something around, I don't know, 6 months and like $19,000.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, and you're at the end, and this is where we
Right.
are,
Yeah.
you know? And so, I just got this aha moment of what they really need to know they're not learning. They're watching a ton of videos, but they're not doing
Right.
any hands-on. So can I create something? And I honestly, that's how I found Mark is this program initially started with him. And as I carried it over, I took the program and made it more online and I turned it into something that offices could implement and create their own dental assisting schools where they could you know, get these incredible young students in, train mostly online, but still have one evening a week where they went deep into hands-on training. And with it, we've been able to create so many classes in the last 10 years of people in this community that went from being a daycare worker or 7-Eleven and now are, these
Yeah.
incredible dental assistants with great careers. So that was the precipice, and that's kind of the
I mean,
result.
I love you sharing this. I want to dig deeper into some of this, but I'll share, as a practice owner of, up to close to 2 decades and someone who was in my dad's practice, the dental assistant is one of the most important people in the dentist's entire life. Okay.
Mhm.
And I am not here. I love front desk team members, and I am here to just share the context. If I have a small practice, I ran my satellite practice on Thursdays for a while, one front desk, one dental assistant, one hygienist, one Paul. The front desk team member doesn't come in, I'm frustrated. We got to put the answering machine on, but we can still do it. They tell me my dental assistant came in for the day, the entire schedule can collapse. So I think that
Mhm.
it's great that you're taking people from other parts of other different professions and jobs and showing them how awesome it can be to be a dental assistant. But you talked about that hands-on training. What are they doing in these offices? Like, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
asking just as much for me because I want to
Yeah.
start one day. So it's like, do you get your lead dental assistant to teach them? Is the dentist teaching them? Tell us more about that.
It honestly is so different per office and what people love. Because people ask me, how hands-on is it for the doctor or the owner? And I say, as much as you want.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that I've always had really good DAs or other associates who wanted to be able to help teach. And so I would say by and large, they are the ones who teaches.
Yeah.
Some of my more experienced DAs. I do have one hygienist who teaches part of the perio stuff. I have one associate doctor who likes to teach and things like that. But it can be as hands-on or hands-off as you want ultimately. Because right now dentists really are having a hard time finding dental assistants who are motivated by patient care versus motivated only by the dollar, moving
Yeah.
from job to job to job and just looking for the next highest dollar. And so I found such success, especially post COVID, with finding these DA students from other industries who are looking to create a better career, better hours, better money, are excited and passionate about learning something new, bringing them through our school, which is just 13 weeks. So it's an
That's
in
great.
office only one time a week, 13 weeks. And at the end, they have these certificates of dental assisting, radiology, and CPR. So they can really, they're doing an externship during this time, obviously, usually in your office. So you can kind of
Yeah.
handpick the best
We,
ones.
we've I've done and I've always enjoyed this. We've hired some we always signed up to be the externship place for a lot of places.
Yeah.
And I was a restaurant server who would train the other servers and we train. I always find that to be like a really positive experience when you have someone in your office who's really hungry to learn. It makes, I mean, honestly, I'm going to play basketball with my daughter after this. And when I teach her, it makes me be better, right?
Yeah.
Makes me be less sloppy. So I think that whole externship experience is really a magical one where your team comes together to train people. So you talked about the hiring struggles. Is it the move around ability of dental assistants? I mean, I'll share some. I mean, I've been in a dental office since I've been born. I mean, my dad and his partner, they had dental assistants that worked with them for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And Jeff and I, if we have someone work with us for 5 years, we're just like, thank you for being here for 5 years. So just kind of reinforce that just to give some context for someone like you for my community about why it's so hard to hire.
Yeah. And I do think in a post-COVID world, things have changed. I do think people's expectations are different. What people are leaving a job for in hopes of gaining something else in a job. I just think maybe value set and things like that have changed. And I also think, when your dad was having dental assistants, it was such a pride-filled career
Yeah.
that I do think I worked in a practice like that when I was younger, and the assistants were the exact same. I mean, they were there for 10, 15. I had one for 20 some years,
Yeah.
and they took such pride in it. Whereas I think the transient nature right now of just people in general, I think people wanting to work from home, I think, like I said, value set. I think just in a post-COVID world, things have changed. And it can make us really grumpy and frustrated and cynical, or it can help us to just get creative. And how do I create a program that I can honestly attract people from different industries and just be able to onboard them more successfully, more quickly, so that if they do leave in 2 years, I still was able to have a great culture
I
fit,
love that. Yeah. I mean,
you know?
I know I've had like not until I started these fake companies in my head. I really only been a dentist and a waiter in my whole life, but I worked for this company, Bloomberg, back in 1994. I've heard of the Bloomberg computer, but it's a financial computer, all they still use today, Michael Bloomberg, and he would hire all these young, smart new grads from college, and he would just replace them. And I would say to people, oh, how come you're here? You go, because you get great training, and then we move on. And I think that that's the unlock to sanity for practice owners, right? From associate dentist to dental assistant to hygienist. I mean, I listened to you and Mark over the summer talk about that with associates. It's like, what if I get an associate who works with me for a while and leaves? Like, yeah, that's what happens when we hire people. So I love that you kind of bring this reality to it. So next questions is, you've talked about the importance of investing in your team, but skills that are missing among candidates, anything that you want to share with us, whether it's from interviewing or onboarding, what are some of the skills that are missing in some of the candidates in this field?
I think that's varied, but I do think if you're looking at somebody who previously came from another office, well, if these are dentists listening to this sort of podcast, probably just their level of expectation is so high. And I find if they're coming from other offices, you get a real mixed bag of the level of skill set, but more than anything, just culture fit that you're going to get. And I think that's probably one of the most challenging things when you're trying to hire from other offices. People love to see experience, and I don't disagree. I love to see somebody with experience. It is easier, but looking at the culture of that place they're coming from can either make or break what's going to happen, with that person.
I've actually, it's I will talk about DSI and DSN at the end, just my favorite places. And they talk about like taking one of your experienced dental assistants and putting with one of your new associates. So together they work, which I think is awesome. Too much experience from someone coming from outside of your culture can be a red flag at times. And I understand why. I might be that person, so like, because you could be rigid, unwilling to change, threatened by change. So I think that's like a really good point where you're looking for this amount of experience. And that's why, with your school, it's so exciting. I mean, I still want Jeff and I to really explore this. We're just trying to figure out the when, because when you can train someone from scratch in your culture, they don't know anything different, right? If they come from a different world. So dentists, Summer, they're awesome, right? We're dentists. I like to think of us as the more normal side. Normal's not too much of a judgment. Maybe less TSD. You know what TSD is, Summer? I've invented it. It's called That's So Dentist. Okay. TSD is That's So Dentist. It's a disease. It's the ability to find the negative in the most positive situations. I could be going to the park with my daughters. A dentist could see me. And I go, I'm going to the park. They go, well, it might rain. It could rain later. So I'm saying this because I love dentists. And they ask questions about the question. They want a bite wing of the bite wing, right? Even though it's not a thing. They would scan their scanner if possible. But just kind of, because I want to use this as a training tool for moving people forward. The implementation part, and you said it, they're saying, hey, I'm going to do this with Summer's team. Walk us through it. Your team onboards them, tell us this, licenses, give us the details.
I love it. I love it. And you're right. I mean, I think that's such a blessing and a curse at the same time, right? It keeps us from making any choices sometimes at all, or doing the things that will propel us forward. But what I will say is this is not a quick process. I tell people this isn't the quick fix. This is the long-term fix for helping to create a consistently healthy dental assistant team for yourself and your community. But it's not the short-term fix. So if people are looking for a hurry up and make this happen, it's not going to be the case. There's a couple states that don't even allow dental assisting programs that are not linked to their universities. And I think like North Dakota is one. We have a list on our website. There's a couple more challenging states that they put you through the ringer for sure. Like New York, Maryland, those are harder states. But for most states, what I say is probably plan on somewhere between 4 and 6, 4 and 8 months of paperwork and just some logistical things. It's not hard. And very likely you're going to have an admin person, who works for you, who's going to be filling out a lot of this. And my team helps these, doctors and admin people get all the paperwork ready and prepared to submit to the state. Well, what you have to realize is it's luck of the draw of what state rep person you're going to get to help you through this process. So almost always they reject things. They make you capitalize something. They make you dot your I with a heart instead of a regular I. They're going to do something, and that's normal too. I know when I was setting up my school, I think I got rejected 3 times before I got the total right thing. So I tell people you can expect it's going to take a while, but Once my team helps aid your admin person in getting this done, you're going to get your certificate for the year. And you are actually state licensed to be able to take people's money to come to your own dental assisting school. You name it, whatever you want. It's just
Yeah.
our product that can help you set up your school. You'll have all your lecture book stuff, your lab book stuff. Everything can be set up online in Kajabi to help students do most things online from home. And then when they come, to your office, whatever day you decide, you work hands-on through all the things they learn didactically through the online program. And I would say, for most doctors, it's not the program itself and implementation that's hard. It's the legalities and all the logistics of getting it set up on the front end. Once it's up and going, a lot of times attracting that first class is a little bit tough from a marketing standpoint. You do have to be able to have repetition,
Yeah.
to get your brand name out. So all of that's probably the biggest part implementing logistics, marketing for
I
that
love it.
first.
What are, I know you're a DSI coach. I want to talk with the end, but so I'm sure that you talk to people whose crowns, they charge $800 up to $2,800 all across this country, right?
Yep.
So now I'm going to bring it back to your world just to give us some context. I'll hold you. What are most offices charging the dental assistant in training, like
Right.
for that 13-week program? What kind of range do you see for that?
First thing I would say is do check your local schools around you. I checked Denver and I checked Grand Junction and I saw how much are students actually paying. So that's first thing. You might as well just see how do you want to be competitive or not. Sometimes I'm not saying you should be competitive with them or undercut your cost. I'm saying just have an idea, at least, of what other people are charging and what they're charging for. Second to that, I would say depending on the state, sometimes on the lower end per student, I'll hear anywhere as low as 1,900. I've heard as high as 5,500 in certain states that are doing it. So maybe somewhere in the middle around 3,000 a student. And then usually people can end up getting anywhere between 4 and 10 students per session. And they hold maybe 3 or 4 sessions per year, depending on how big of their
And they're
area is.
usually the in-office part is one night per week for 13 weeks.
You got it.
And you walk us through all the things that we need to do with these hands-on things from, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know, it's rubber dam placement, impressions, things like that.
Yeah. And what I tell people is don't forget when people look at our program, they're like, well, some of this is really fundamental or, a little bit antiquated. And I say, well, don't forget, we have to get our program through the most amount of states. And so much of it is written to the state, not necessarily to the student. So I say where the magic comes in is in the lab portion. When you're doing hands-on training and you're learning a PVS impression, you say, some offices you may go to have PVS impressions. This is what it looks like. Let me show you what a scanner looks like, though, and this is a digital impression. Or some people don't have digital x-rays, but let me show you, what digital x-rays look like. So we tell people the nice thing with the hands-on portion is you can go as deep into the ortho section as you want, as deep into the oral surgery section as you want, utilizing, more things that you have in your office, especially if you're trying to hire from that class. You can go as deep as you want when you're in the lab. And that's for me where the magic actually happens for offices.
I think it's awesome. And also just, it's the parallel to dental schools is similar. You're learning tools and techniques and you're learning what to watch out for. I'm sure that you've trained dental assistants who are like, I'm so glad I did this because when I applied for a job, I didn't even know that what this dentist was doing was not okay. I'll try not to be too judgmental, right? Whether it's from infection control or what they have assistants do. So you're really arming them, not just with tools and techniques, but also just with enough knowledge to know that what the jobs they're applying for, are they okay or not okay jobs? Because I think whether it's associates through Dentist Job Connect, dental assistants, dental hygienists, we'll bring Mark back on for the Front Desk Academy in the future. Nobody wants a job that makes them feel like they want to cry inside when they walk into work. I did a whole video one summer where I think it's a really good one. It's like, do you want to walk into work where you work? And that feeling, if you don't want to do it, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. And that goes from a practice owner making 7 figures to a hygienist. If you get out of your car and don't want to walk into where you work, this is not a dental thing. There's no amount of money that can make that feeling better in my experience. So I think that's great to do that. So as we kind of finish up, and tell people how they can connect with you. But when I finish interviews, and I'll ask you this too, I always say to people, what do you wish someone told you sooner? What do you wish you did sooner? And mine is always, I wish I ran into somebody like Mark Costas sooner in my career, because early on, I hired management coaches and team coaches, and I was way ahead of the game with culture and building, but I never really looked at numbers. We took all these insurances that had big write-offs, and it wasn't really until I met Mark in 2018 that I really paid attention to this. We were still successful. We weren't going out of business. My dad had a very nice practice, but we didn't pay attention to our insurance write-offs. We didn't pay attention to what we were spending. So to me, the DSI really helped me with that. And you're one of the DSI coaches. Kind of tell us a little bit about what you do as a DSI coach and what your DSI mentees get out of it.
Yeah, well, I feel the same way. Like I think the beauty of it though is it's kind of nice to have bumped along for a little bit so that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
do have at least some sense of, your feet being on the ground as a dental
Yeah.
owner. And then running into, oh my gosh, and here's what the numbers mean. I think a lot of times they're just so daunting, and people's accountants can often make them feel really way bigger and more scary than
Yes.
they are.
Yeah.
They say big words like P&Ls and balance sheets and
Yeah.
balance
Yeah.
sheets and stuff, and people are like, what does this mean? And I think that's the value of DSI is, I love working with, I get to talk to so many men and women coaches, but teaching them how to use their numbers to make great decisions, using them more as just like a dashboard of helping them understand where overhead is. Is it time to get an associate? Is it time to hire another hygienist? How many exams per doctor do you have? Because a lot of times once they see the metrics, it's funny, it just tells the whole story. And all of a sudden, it's just like I said, light bulbs go off, and doctors all of a sudden are like, no wonder it feels like I'm running faster and not taking home any more money. And often they are,
And they have what I want to call, because it's my culture, Jewish grandmother syndrome. And this is it. You go to your grandmother's house. She's cooking the meal for everyone. You go, oh, grandma, I will help you take it out to the table. They go, that's not how I do it. I have to do it myself. And the entire time, she's loving and stressed. And whether it's the associate dentist, the hygienist, something happens to these dentists where they become their own worst enemy for enjoying life, even though they become wildly successful as a dentist. And the hot seats, which I think you guys should rebrand as help seats. I want to tell Mark that. I think you guys should say these are the help seats, because that's really are. I sit around them, and you got a dentist who owns 4 practices doing $10 million, helping someone who just passed $1 million in the most authentic and supportive way. And I think that's the magic, because dental school, I always call it the dental school Hunger Games, teaches us to compete instead of collaborate. How did you guys create this magic where it support each other no matter what? It's abundance mindset.
I do think it's part of just, you attract very specific people, to the dental nachos who are wanting to be that kind of person as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing with DSI. I think they're so symbiotic that we just care so much about creating help and support, no sense of competition. And as you know, some of the people live in the same town,
Yeah,
even. And with that, it's still such an incredible thing to think abundantly. And sometimes too, the nice thing is that doctor who just passed $1 million gets to see the massive ceilings of complexity that the $10 million person walked through, and they get to see profitability may not be nearly what they thought it should be. And I think that's part of it too, is people getting to see sometimes more isn't more. Sometimes bigger isn't always better. Or sometimes you have to get bigger to be able to get the freedom you want. I think there's just this beautiful sense of there's people in so many different spots in their career, and there's always somebody who's doing something different or more. There's always somebody who you could potentially help. And I think that's just the joy of it, is everybody is unselfish about that. We're all so excited to help each other just get to whatever that next step of success means.
Yeah, I think it's truly for someone who, I said this the other day, I was going to post this. I don't want to brag in this moment, Summer, but I have a giant ego. I think you're looking at and talking to the person who connects with more dentists than any other dentist in the country. I have a 58,000 member Facebook group. I have 22,000 people on Instagram. I have multiple practices. I sell practices. I do Job Connect. I actually think that I connect in some way with more dentists as number than anyone. And there's some really not cool things that happen out there. And to be inside of the DSI, where it's just be cool no matter what, and the DSN, we'll talk about that in a minute, because, I have favorite dentists like Dr. Ashley Dawson, who came to my new dentist boost camp and is now a DSI member. And they get to talk to you and Jason Tenori when he's not doing push-ups on a volcano, and all these coaches like Aaron Nicholas. they get access to you, right? Where they basically can create anything from a dentist therapy call to a money call. Is that accurate?
Yep, absolutely. Well, and each of us kind of has our specialties, the things that we feel better equipped to talk about. Like one that I will punt every time to my buddy Addison is I don't want to talk to people about external marketing.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
will I will punt that. But when you're wanting to talk about, yeah, acquisitions and mergers, okay, here's the people who can help you with that. If you're wanting to talk about buying a building and figuring
Got it.
out tax ramifications, there's somebody for that. And that's where I think both in DSN and DSI, that's what I love is almost there's people who have gone before you in each one of those, areas, which is helpful.
And that's why, as we get, I don't want to keep you too long, but I'm really enjoying this. DSI is my Jeff and I are members of DSI. That is what I call it, high level coaching. We go to masterminds together. You have to be committed, right? You have to be committed to it. And it's the right thing for you at the right time. DSN is like this larger network, which is also amazing. Tell our audience about what DSN means to you or the people in it, or how they can kind of be part of it for a much lower cost and kind of get an idea of what these people are talking about.
Yeah, I absolutely couldn't agree with everything more you just said about DSI is good when you're ready. A lot of times I tell people start with DSN. Start
Yeah.
with DSN, look and listen to Mark's podcast, utilize some of the Nacho source resources and things like that. Really kind of, like I said, maybe get your feet kind of on the ground with some of these things. And DSN has a wealth of knowledge, almost too much sometimes. It has all these separate rooms that you can go into for all the different disciplines within dentistry, oral surgery, ortho. I mean, I'm trying to think pedo, airway, anything you can think
And you
of.
can
It's
ask
got
questions without any concern of people saying, you're foolish, you're stupid, you should have known that. And
absolutely.
it's so awesome. And
Yeah.
I run the Facebook group. People ask anonymous questions because some dentists are just very mean. Inside of DSN, you don't have to worry about that. And you can say things, you could say real questions like, my
Yeah.
hygienist just asked for $10 more an hour. And the DSM people and DSI people like, you probably should pay them that because your pay rate is way behind the times, right? And you
Right.
wouldn't know that. Or they might say, hey, that's not going to be something that's doable for you. So I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. Love you sharing that. Now, as a selfish and altruistic question, I always talk about that with associates. You are one of our best referrals for Dentist Job Connect. Not to refer to Dentist Job Connect, but just talk about associates. My thought process is most practice owners think about hiring an associate too late. By the time they already come and say, I need an associate, it was something they should have probably started six months ago, 12 months ago. Why do you think that is, or do you see that in your travels?
I very much see that. And especially the first associate, I think, or letting go a first associate that didn't go well, it really just scares people out of wanting to do it. And, I think I'm really always sad to hear that because it can be such a key to freedom. But,
Yeah.
I always joke you're only one hire away from the keys to your freedom. You're one hire away from things being changed for you. And I think people have fear of their reputation being diminished. They have a fear of not having control, exactly like you said with your Jewish grandmother.
Yeah,
That's a perfect analogy. They're
yeah.
afraid of how somebody's going to carry that casserole dish to the
Yeah,
table,
yeah.
And I think there's so many great ways. And I mean, not to tout DSN again, but that's the podcast Mark and I just did, or the webinar we did was in regards to some of the fears that get people from not wanting to get an associate. I say the same thing. Usually it's a little bit too late. They're running hot by the time they try to bring in an associate. And that's the worst time, in my opinion, to bring an associate in is when you're redlining,
Yeah, I love when you say that. Also, it puts a lot of pressure on the people around you. You know what I say is this analogy? We all get frustrated by the patient who you said to get a crown in February and calls you up on December 15th and says, I got to get in before the end of the year. It's a frustrating feeling. So, my team is watching from Dentist Job Connect. It's a frustrating feeling to us when they go, I need an associate. We go, oh, great, Dr. Summer. We're so excited. When? Next week. Like, these people don't live in our basement. We have to find real dentists out there. You could have come to us sooner. So to me, it's a little bit wild that it's vulnerable because a practice can't open unless you have an associate dentist.
Yeah.
And you're doing a great job with your clients. I just would like to get that message out there, not a Dentist Job Connect agenda, just a bench in your office for people to, because how many associates do you have right now?
Yeah, I usually try to have 5. I'm down to 4. I had a really great one who we loved so much who moved to Kansas City, but that's okay. Yeah.
that's my thing. Sometimes the best things that happen to others are the worst things that happen to you. They come to
You're
you and
right.
say, hey, guess what? I'm moving across the country. My husband or spouse got the best job of their life. And then your face has to go, oh, hooray. And inside you're
Yeah.
saying, you're crying. Well, you've
Yeah.
shared so much awesomeness with this summer. I love all the things I want to share. When people can text assist to 215-798-9897 to learn more, my team will put all the links in the podcast. You have a generous Job Connect and Nacho discount. What happens in that first meeting? Do they go on a Zoom call? Do they talk to your team on the phone? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my team will usually within 24 to 48 hours, they're going to reach out and just get them more information. They're also going to find out is their territory available because we don't sell multiple schools
Gotcha.
within one territory. We really try to help secure for our doctors, around a $200,000 radius or 200,000 person radius so that people can really focus on their areas
Yeah.
without having multiple schools in their spot. So that's kind of the first step is the territory available? And then they really walk through what's going to be necessary, how much it costs with the discount and things like that.
Awesome. Well, I am just super excited to keep sharing this. I'm still working with my
Thank you.
brother. I want to do this. I love teaching. I love ensuring my own sanity, literally and figuratively. If you're going to keep running your practice, you're going to keep needing dental assistance. I always share, you're one of my FIPS summer. I call it my friend in your phone. The more friends in your phone you have, the better. So anyone can text me at 267-896-1942 to learn more about anything we do or reach out to us at dentistjobconnect.com. Thanks so
Absolutely.
much for sharing with us, Summer. You're
Thank
awesome.
you.
Can't wait to see you soon.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you.